Hello there, YouTubers. Thank you for stopping in and checking out my video. Today, what we have here is Mr. Frankenstein, who I've named Frankenstein. It's my miner rig. And if you've seen my last video, you'd know we're putting a new heart into Frankenstein. So let's get him up on here on the show. Oh, before we go much further, this is the power supply that came out of Frankenstein. It, as you may or may not know, it's an OEM style power supply and not very good quality. So it's out of here. Okay, and we'll get her in the frame here. Okay, this is Frankenstein, and I named it Frankenstein due to the simple fact that every single component in this computer came out of some type of salvage, either a dumpster where it was thrown away or somebody's trash was the same thing, or it was laying in a basement or a closet. Nobody wanted it, and they said, "Hey, Don, you want this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll find a use for it." Uh, as some of you astute computer builders will notice, there's no cable management going on right here yet. Uh, you saw the power supply, and you can see that I have changed it over to EVGA, and I didn't want to use up what little zip ties I have to do all the proper cable management when I knew that I was going to be having to cut it out and remove it because this motherboard is out of here and it will become backup. So, without any further ado, let's get into this. If you've never built a computer, it shouldn't intimidate you because they pretty much, well, have, for lack of a better word, idiot proofed it. So, anybody with any level of intelligence can just about pretty much build their own computer and save themselves quite a chunk of change. So the first order of business, and the only thing you really need is a Phillips screwdriver. I like to use this one because it gives me several options on different sizes. And you have different size tips. Standard, Phillips. This is a number two, and this is a number three size Phillips. Number three is usually the one we're going to be dealing with, so we'll just get that baby all ready to rock and roll. And let's start disassembling. Now, you're not going to see my face too much because my camera's not that great, but I'll be talking, and you'll see my hands, and we'll walk you through this. So, step one, disassembly. That means that we're going to disconnect all the cables, be it power or data. And I'll be going through it with you, so you don't have to worry about nothing. Now, first thing we're order of business is we're going to take out the main power connector, the 24 pin main power to the board. It has a single clip on it that on the majority of boards is on the inside, this side, away from the motherboard uh, clip, and we're going to just simply push that clip and unlock it, and then gently rock it back and forth, and we're out like that. Now our main power supply is disconnected, and we're going to pull it up, get it up out of the way. Now we're doing the main power supply for the CPU slash APU in this case. It works the same way as all the other power connectors in here. We're going to come up on the board, find the clip, press down, pinch down on it, and then we'll gently rock it back and forth, working it out. Just take your time with this. There's no need to get in a hurry. There's one of them. Now the other one. And we're out. We'll get it up out of the way. Now, these are all our drives coming from the bottom to the top. And the astute of you will notice my fan, which keeps my drives cool, because this case, it has no airflow. So we got to do what we got to do in order to keep those drives cool, because we don't need electricity heat is the killer of all electricity. 91.76% of all premature failure of electronic devices is directly related to heat issues. So we got our fan. We'll put it up out of the way. This is for a graphics card if we needed to power it. And this is a Molex type power connector. We have two types in here. We have Molex and we have SATA. So we'll get those up out of the way. And now we're going to come down, starting with the top, working our way down. And we'll just unplug all the power SATA connectors. And I have unmounted this hard drive so you can get a little closer look at what's going on. This is our SATA power connector. This is our data connector, which connects to the motherboard. So just going to wiggle. And now untangle the mess here. All of the power connectors are now disconnected from both the motherboard and our hard drives. So next, we're going to have to remove the data connectors from the motherboard. We don't necessarily have to remove them from the hard drive, because all of these hard drives are going to stay with this case. So we're going to come in here, and the way the SATA data cables work, they have a little locking clip on the top, and you just simply push it down and remove it. There's the second cable, third cable, fourth cable, the fifth cable, and the sixth cable. meaning that all the data cables are now removed from the board. Next up, we are going to remove the front panel connectors where they connect to the board. I'll go ahead and tilt this case on its side so you can see what I'm doing. So now the front panel connectors are down here, and these leads coming in right here, the gray ones. Okay. One is for your microphone, headphone connection that go up on the front panel, and the other one is where the USB ports that are on the front of your case are plugged into the motherboard. So let's go ahead and remove those. This one right here that I'm disconnecting is the microphone and speakers. The next one down is going to be our USB port connectors. And I'm just gently rocking them back and forth and pulling. Okay. Next, we're going to disconnect the power connector for the fan, the rear case fan. And right here it says case fan right on the board. Now we're going to move on to the power button, the little red light, which is your hard drive light on this particular case. It could be different for each case. The yellow light indicates that power is on for this one, and which is also known as the front panel header on your board. When it comes to lights, you have to watch your orientation of positive to negative. Otherwise, the light's not going to come on. You're not going to blow the board up. You're safe. When it comes to the reset button or the power button, which is also in the same area, it don't matter which way you go. You don't have to watch the orientation of positive or negative. It'll always work. Just plug it in and you're good to go. So that's all those connectors right there. Now we're at a point where we're ready to remove the motherboard. We're going to remove the screws, the mounting screws. We've got 3 on each line, and the board will simply lift out. I've had to lay the case down because you can't do that type of work with it standing on the edge. Otherwise, the board will fall in your lap. Okay. What I've done while the camera was paused was simply to unscrew all the mounting screws. Okay, what I've done while I paused the video was to simply unscrew all the mounting screws from the motherboard itself, which is holding in the motherboard into the case. So let's go ahead and lift it up out of the case. I'll go ahead and stand it up so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, we'll get all our wires pushed up out of the way, so not to interfere with what we're doing. And always grab the CPU cooler to lift or place the motherboard into your case. So we're going to work it out. And again, something's holding us up. Ah, there it is. I've missed one of the screws, mounting screws, down here in the lower corner. So this was what I was doing while I had the video paused. I thought I had all the screws out, but evidently I have missed one. Okay, I think we are, yep, we're ready to go. And out comes the motherboard. Now let's lay this down. And I will indicate we have standoffs between the motherboard tray and the back of the motherboard. We'll get to that point here in a minute. So let's get the case up out of the way. And we'll get our new motherboard. And as promised, this is the chair that my brother broke, as you can see. So he says he didn't. I tell him he's full of poo. Okay, so now I mentioned about the standoffs between the motherboard tray and the motherboard itself. On the back of the motherboard, you can see all these metal tabs. If we didn't have something to keep the motherboard elevated from the metal tray, as soon as you power this on, you're going to short the board out. Short the board out. So obviously we need something to put an air gap in between the back of the motherboard and the motherboard tray, which is all metal. Okay, so next we're going to work on the CPU itself, and this is the CPU cooler. To remove the CPU cooler, all we're going to do, and this only works for AMD. I will, in another video, go over Intel's peculiarities versus AMD. So today we're only going to cover AMD. We have a lever right here, and it flips up and over. So we're going to do that. There's two tabs, one on this side and another one on the opposite side. We have to take the latches off of the tabs. Okay, we're off of that one. And we're off of that one. Now, this is very important for AMD. Only for AMD. You're to grab the mother or the CPU cooler, and you're gonna twist back and forth, rock it back and forth. Do not simply pull it off, because you'll, a lot of the times, not every time, but a lot of the times, pull the CPU right straight up out of the socket, the way AMD's designed. The thermal paste, and we'll go over thermal paste in a little bit, but the thermal paste will harden over time. And so what we're doing by twisting the CPU cooler is we're breaking that hardening and freeing it from the CPU. So let's do that. Hear that little click? That tells me I've broken contact. So I can simply lift it off. And see? The The CPU is still in its socket. So, success this time. I'm unplugging the CPU fan from the motherboard. So, this is our CPU cooler. Now, here in a little bit before assembly, we have to use denatured alcohol. And this is very important. You only want to use denatured alcohol. You do not want to use rubbing alcohol. It has other chemicals in it that will interfere and have bad reactions with the type of materials that are used in making a PC. So we stay away from rubbing alcohol. You have to go to a hardware store and get yourself a can of, and it's probably in backwards, but denatured alcohol. Okay, it's also Bunsen fuel. Same thing. Denatured alcohol is wood grain alcohol, like the moonshiners make, but they put a chemical in it so that if you drink it, you're gonna be one sick puppy. So I don't recommend it. I've heard of fools that have done it and pretty much lost their mind. So stay away from drinking this stuff. Okay, but we'll get to that here in a minute. We'll get it up out of the way, and we'll get our CPU cooler up out of the way. Next on the hit parade list is to remove the CPU itself. And for this make and type of board, and I went over this in the first video, this is not just a CPU. It's also the graphics are built into the CPU body. Within this case is the graphics. Older models have the graphics built onto the motherboard itself. This doesn't have that. This has the graphics in the CPU itself. Therefore, they call it an APU. Okay. There's a lever right here right here where I got my thumb, and it has a latch, and I'm going to move the metal bar off of the latch and up and out, and this will unlock the CPU, APU. There it is. It's up and out of the way. You can see it standing up. Now I'm going to hold it on either side of the APU, and I'm going to lift straight up. You have to take real care with this, and I'll show you why here in a minute, or less than a minute actually. Okay, we're up and away. Let's set that board down. On the back side of this APU, and I don't know if you can see it too well, but there's rows upon row upon row upon row of the diameter of a human hair pins. You don't want to bend a single one of these pins. AMD is the only one that does this. Intel does a different way. That's why I say we'll get to that when I get to the Intel build. And a shout out to Mr. V-Neck. He has graciously donated an Intel CPU and motherboard to me. And so we'll be doing another build guide on an Intel setup. So right now, I'm going to have to step up out of the way because I don't have the protective shell to put this APU in. It's highly delicate. You have to take extreme care when handling this. Any APU, CPU, Intel, AMD, doesn't matter. So I'm going to step up out of the way here for a minute and get the protective shell, and we'll be right back. This is the protective plastic shell that's also called a clam shell because it works pretty much like a clam. You just open it right up, and I'm going to take this APU pin side down and drop it right into there. This will ensure that if it gets bumped or knocked, I'm not going to bend any one of those pins on the back side of there. Okay, so we'll set that off to the side. We have one last thing to remove from the old motherboard, and that is our RAM, also known as memory. You know how a lot of things have two different names to it. Well, the RAM, memory, has it too. And the way we're going to remove it, and it will be the reverse when we go to install it, is it has two locking tabs, one on the top and then one on the bottom. And I want to show you closer, but you'll notice on this particular board there is four slots for uh, the RAM. Some boards only have two, and some have four. And if I'm not mistaken, I've seen one. It was really, really old that only had one slot, but just scratch that. Uh, you will notice that I'm in slot number one. Here's slot number two. This is slot number three. I have a piece of RAM there. In slot number four. In order for a board to run in what's known as dual channel memory, it needs two channels or to be populated with RAM. And this particular board has two slots per channel. So if I was to put RAM in slot 1 and slot 2, I'd still be single channel because I'm populating, or I have RAM in, slot 1 of channel 1 and slot 1 of channel 2. So I don't have memory full of one channel. So you have to read your motherboard or your manual because our new board over here is a gigabyte, and they work things a little bit different. The way they do theirs on ASRock. This is ASRock. This is channel 1, A1, B1, A2, B2. Gigabyte does it a little bit different. Okay, different manufacturers, so they got to be different. This over here, all the way over to this side, not this side, is A1, B1, A2, B2. Completely backwards. Okay, so that's why you always want to. I've been building PCs for, I think I started in '96, and even I check the manual to make sure that I'm doing things that are right for that manufacturer and that particular motherboard. Okay, because it can even change by different models by the same manufacturer. They could swap it around on you. Okay, so you got to make sure that you're doing the right things for your new motherboard, and that's why I have right here the manual to the new motherboard. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove this RAM, and these levers, they're upright. I'm just going to pop them, move them. So down, come up here, down. The RAM lifts straight up and out of the way. Again, repeat the same process. Bring it down, up out of the way. And the other thing you'll notice on this RAM, it has a slot right smack dab in the center, right here. Or not center, it's kind of off to one side. So there's more length on one end and there's a shorter end. That will make sure that you orientate it properly in the slots and you don't get them backwards. Okay? If you're having to use all your strength to push a piece of RAM into the slot, stop before you damage the motherboard. Nothing on a motherboard takes every bit of your strength. Some of it takes, a bit of a firm push, but you don't. If you're forcing it, stop, double check what you're doing, okay? Because nothing on this board needs to be forced, okay? Now, at this point, say bye-bye. This board, out of here. Disassembly is done. We have all our parts, all our components ready to assemble the new heart of Frankenstein. Frankenstein 2.0. And what we're going to start with is this motherboard. This is the one I showed in the unboxing video. Okay? So, my first step is in complete reverse of what I did to disassemble it. So, starting with the RAM, we're going to install the RAM. And the RAM that I unboxed and I just took off of the old board is the same RAM. So that's why I'm using it. I'm not using the RAM that was in here originally. Or not here, but in the other board. Okay. I got my first stick of RAM, and as I indicated before, the gray slots that you see here is the A channel. The black is the B channel. So, in order to get dual channel memory, I need to populate the gray. There are a lot of texts that will tell you it doesn't matter whether you do the gray all or the black all. I'm just too analogical. I like things in an analogical order. So, therefore, I've always used A. If you fill them all up, it don't matter. Obviously, you got dual channel everything. Okay. So, first thing I look at is I orientate that slot that I indicated before. And it orientated with the slot on the motherboard itself. I'm going to take those levers, pop them down, and as I push down on the RAM, those tabs will lock in. When they lock, that tells me I'm done pushing. I don't need to push this RAM anymore. And I always use the motherboard box. It has some give, it has some flex to it, so I'm not shoving it into a hard surface like the table here. And guys, if you do push it into the table, you will put scratches on that table, and your wives are not going to be none too happy with you. You're going to be hearing about it for a while. So, I'm throwing the locking tabs down on both gray slots. And this piece is longer than this piece, so that tells me I've got it orientated properly. I'm going to guide it down into the slot. Okay, it's down. And I'm going to put thumbs on either ends of the RAM, and I'll push down on the RAM until I see and hear it click and it'll lock in. That's one. I'll try to get my mic a little closer so maybe you'll be able to hear the actual click when it locks in. Okay, let's orientate this RAM. Okay, we're ready. There. I don't know if you heard those click, but I had a definite click. Now I'm going to get this up out of the way because I've got a little bit of prep work to do. This is our APU again, and like I indicated before, covering the surface of this APU is what's known as a thermal grease. And the reason why we use a thermal grease is this is not an absolute true and flat surface. Neither is this. And the two are going to be in contact with each other. And the way thermals work, you don't want any air gaps. And the thermal compound, yeah, I have a big syringe of thermal compound. Okay. I do a lot of building. They have little tubes, and that's perfect for you. It's a one-shot deal. Boom. If you buy a brand new CPU, a lot of them already have thermal paste uh, applied to the back of the CPU cooler uh, when it's brand new. So you don't even have to make sure you buy thermal paste. It's already there. You just lock that puppy down onto your motherboard and you're ready to rock and roll. So, but that's not the case in this instance. So in this instance, I have to clean the surface of the APU and remove all of the old thermal paste. So get me a piece of paper towel here. We'll fold this puppy over once. Fold it over twice. Let's go 3, and I think we're good for one more. 4. Yeah. Now we're cooking with gas. Got us a nice little cleaning pad. And you guys are about to see why I really love this screwdriver. Okay. All I have to do, pull this out. On this end, this is a Phillips right now. That is a standard, or also known as a flat by a lot of people. I'm going to put that in there. Drop that in there. And the locking lid on this, I need my screwdriver to unlock it. There we go. Now, we'll go ahead and flip it around. Boy, I can smell that alcohol already. Drop that puppy in. We're back to my Phillips. Okay, yep, we're good to go. A lot of you might have thin skin, and if you want to use rubber gloves, no problem. Uh, 40 plus years of working outside, I've got calluses on calluses that have got calluses on them. So don't worry about my skin. And all I'm doing is I'm rubbing back and forth and removing all of the old thermal compound. And it sometimes gets down on the edges. So we're going to take that off. Yep, that side's good. This does not take long at all. And I definitely hope that the music isn't too loud in the background. Uh, as you know, I'm part of Burst Nation, and I have Burst Nation radio on 24/7. And we'll get into that here a little bit at the end of the video. It is so. Please stick around. It is definitely information you'll want to know about. Okay, that's side 3. And last but not least, side 4. And I'm always taking care not to put my fingers on top of the pins on the back side here. As I said, those pins are extremely delicate and you do not ever want to bend them. It's not the end of the world if you happen to. It's you just generated a whole bunch of work for yourself because you're going to have to get the magnifying glass out and sit here and with a thin razor blade straighten every single one of those little bitty pins, and you got to make sure that all of them in that row are perfectly true and aligned, and not only this way but going this way. Okay, it's row upon row upon row of pins. So I'm sure it's showing very well, but it's all nice and shiny and clean, and we got all the old thermal compound off. Okay, so no more need to be snorting denatured alcohol. Okay, and we're going to drop it again back in this clamshell. I don't want to take any risk of bending those pins. When my co-host Kitty's out here, I know if I got it laying up here, the way my luck runs, they'll be up here and it'll be on the deck and it'll have bent pins, and I'll be spending 3 or 4 days straightening out all of those pins. So now that we have the APU all cleaned, we're ready to install it into the socket. Okay, and it is just the reverse of what I did to remove it. You can see the silver locking arm right here, and I'm going to on this end push down and out a little bit. Not this far. I'm exaggerating, but just a little bit, and then it'll come up and out, and it'll move the tray, this tray right here, and allow me to be able to drop the APU into the socket. So we're unlocking the socket, up and out. There it is. Okay. I'm gonna lay the board down, but no, I think maybe I can. We'll see how if I can walk and chew gum at the same time. So every single APU, CPU, all of them out there have what's known as orientation marker with AMD and I believe with Intel, but I'm not positive. We'll know when we get to that. But with AMD, there is a little gold triangle here on one corner, and we're going to orientate it with a should be right about there. I might be backwards, but it'll be in a corner. There'll be a triangle uh, in the black plastic, and you line these two up, those two triangles, so they're pointing at each other, and then with your orientation, you're going to go straight down. It should just drop right straight in, no pressure whatsoever. If you are pushing, you're going to bend pins. And we know about bent pins. I can't go stress it enough. I mean, with this, it's a $35 APU. Not such a big thing. But when you start dealing with a CPU that costs 2,000 bucks, that's a big deal. Okay, so this will get you in the practice that you don't have to worry that you're going to damage the CPU installing it because you know what you're doing. So let's orientate this and see how we do. I'm going to have to lay the board down just for a second so I can get the triangle. Ah, okay. Triangle's right here. Okay. So My triangle's right here. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this. Uh, Sorry, folks. We're going to have to lay it down. I cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. Okay, so, okay. Now, it dropped all the way. It's flat. I can run my finger lightly over the surface and it doesn't rock. If it rocks, stop, grab the sides, and lift straight up. You don't have pins lined up. If everything's perfectly lined, it'll just simply drop right into the socket. So now that I can push down on it, and I've got some pretty good firm pressure here. And this is only for AMD that we're going to do this, so that when I move this lever to lock it, it doesn't push up on the uh, APU and you know give you a bad contact. I'm by pressing down on the APU surface, assuring that it's going to stay flat and locked as I lock the bar. So let's do that. And you'll feel a little resistance, but just like I say, push it and lock it up under the little latch. And we're in. Now comes the thermal paste. We're going to apply about like the size of a pea. So let's do that. I'm going to lay it down for a second and get it on here. This stuff is as thick as molasses in the wintertime. 40 below zero. Wind chill factor, negative 25. Yeah, good times. Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. Rip it up, throw it out. Ain't doing that no more. And I'm pulling back on the plunger. And then we'll clean off the tip. Grab the tip, put it on there. Okay. We got it on there. And I'll show you what I got. You can see I got just a very small amount. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread it so it's even all the way across. Some people do it, some don't. Some just push it down and let the CPU cooler spread it. Uh, I have my ways. You can do it all works. But the objective is to ensure that there's no air gaps in between the surface of the APU and the surface of the CPU cooler, because air gaps mean heat. Heat kills electronics. We don't want that. So let me get to spreading here. And it doesn't have to be thick, okay? Like I said, it just needs a nice, thin, even coat all the way across the surface of your CPU slash APU in this case. Okay, and I'll show you. You can see it's all white now. My thermal paste happens to be white, some silver, some are all different colors. It don't really matter because nobody's going to see it as long as it does its job. And I happen to really, really, really love the this brand, and the reason why I like it is it's a ceramic thermal compound, and there's no metal in it. Some thermal compounds use a metal base to it, and if you get it in contact with other pin connectors, you can short stuff out. It's happened. It's done. it's bit me. So once bit, twice shy. We're not going down that road again. And I'm not quite done with the rubbing alcohol. Got ahead of myself a little bit. We got one more surface to clean, and that's the surface of the CPU cooler. So let's take care of that puppy right now. And all I'm doing is the same thing I did to the surface of the CPU slash APU. And you'll know when you have all of the old thermal compound by the color and also by the feel of the surface. There won't be any sticky or tacky to it. It'll be smooth metal. And that's what we're looking for, smooth metal. Okay, good to go. Now, you don't have to apply thermal compound. You're doing overkill. If you apply it here, you already applied it onto the CPU slash APU. So there's no need to apply it also to this surface. When the two mate, everything's applied. So, okay, cleaning's done. Let's get to it. Okay. I'm going to move a little bit closer so you can see these ears. There are little ears on either side of it. And you will see that little square hole right there is going to go over the top of these tabs. Now, I'm going to orientate the CPU cooler because you have a fan to plug in. This wire that's dingling around here. Here's the contacts where I'm going to plug it in. Okay. If I orientate it in such a way that I can't reach, then you're going to have to take it off, spin it around, and make sure that you can reach it. And right here, the wire's on this corner, and my pin's right here, so we're going to put it this way and not this way where I'm got to come all the way up and around and hope that I've got a long enough cord. So let's not even go there. As my father used to say, and I'll say it politically correct this time, don't start no doo-doo, there won't be no doo-doo. Okay, that one's in its slot. This one's in its slot. Now we're going to take that lever, and it's got a cam, and we're simply just going to swing it over and lock it in. And you'll feel it lock in when you do that. There it is, all locked in. Now we're going to take our, in this case we got a 4-pin connector, and the reason why they use a 4-pin connector with this particular CPU and not a 3-pin is with a 4-pin, the motherboard can control the RPM speed of the fan, so it's nice and quiet when there's not a lot of heat. If it sees a bunch of heat, it'll automatically throttle it up, and you don't have to worry about overheating and monitoring all that. The motherboard is intelligent. It will take care of that. So a 3-pin is the ground, the power, and the wire that tells your screen when you bring up the proper box what RPM the fan's running at. On a 4-pin, that last wire is what controls the amount of voltage that goes to the fan to determine how fast the fan turns. So I look here and I've got, it says right on it, system fan, CPU fan. And the reason why it has those two different headers is they have, nowadays they have what's known as AOI, all in one, which is a water cooled solution. And the water cooled solution has a built in pump. It's a sealed system, so you're using water cooled, but you need power for the pump. So system fan will always be power for the pump. CPU fan, which it has a CPU fan even on the AOI or AIO. Uh, it has a fan on the radiators, so it would get plugged into CPU fan. Okay, but we're not dealing with that. We're dealing with a straight air cool, so we're going to plug straight into the CPU fan uh, pin connector. And again, like everything else on this board, it has a notch. It's orientated, so you can't get it backwards. The only way you can get it backwards is if you force it in there and say, you're going to fit. Yeah, it'll fit. And then it's broke. So always pay attention to your orientations of your pins, and you'll never go wrong. So there we go. Okay, tuck it in, up out of the way. Now, at this point, this is where I kind of vary from some testers or some builders. Is I'm going to power this board up right here, okay, outside of the case. And when I power it up, I'm going to have it hooked to this monitor. We'll swing the camera around so you can see what I'm watching, okay? All I'm looking for is what's known as a boot into BIOS, okay? Uh, when I see the boot screen pop up, that tells me that this is a good board, okay? Electronics are pretty much an even or. Either it works or it don't, okay? And if this thing don't work, then it's going back to the manufacturer, and I don't have to expend the extra labor of, because too many times I've gone through all the steps and installed it all the way into my case, only to find that the board is bad. New does not mean good, okay? So we're going to verify that this is a good board before we go through all the steps of making sure, all the steps to install it into the computer. We're going to make sure that it works. So uh, to do that, I'm going to bring the old case up here and bring the 24 pin main power connector into the board, and I'm going to bring in the 8 pin. Some CPU power pins are 4 and some are 8. Connect that, and then I'm going to hook up the graphics or the VGA cable in this case. I'm not going to use the HDMI cable or the DVI cable into the monitor. I'm only going to use the VGA cable because my monitor here, that's what I've got plugged into it right now, is a VGA cable. So we'll bring the VGA cable in. And again, this particular CPU APU has got the onboard graphics, so I don't have to put in a dedicated graphics card in order for it to show up. I can run it off of these connectors. Okay, so we're going to hook up our powers, motherboard power, CPU power, plug in the GPU. Right here in this corner is what's known as the front panel connectors. Okay, and I talked about that a little bit. The power button gets hooked up here. The reset button gets hooked up in this block. The hard drive light indicator gets hooked up here, as well as the power light. Okay, so once I have everything hooked up, I'm going to take my screwdriver and I'm going to place it in between the positive and the negative of the uh, power switch connectors. You're not going to we're shorting the two out together, but that's how it works. is by being shorted out. When you push the button on your computer to turn it on, you're shorting these two pins. And that's why it doesn't matter if you got positive. Here's the positive post. Here's the negative post on these two pins. It don't matter, the positive, negative on the leads if you get them turned around. It don't matter because on your on and off button, it only works when it makes contact. So you're completing the circuit, shorting these two pins that tells the the power supply to power up, and your computer comes up. I'm not even going to hook up my mouse. I'm not even going to hook up uh, keyboards. I don't need any of that. All I'm doing is I'm verifying that this is a working motherboard. I see the boot screen pop up, and we'll show it to you. Okay, the BIOS screen. We see it pop up. Okay, it's going to give us a bunch of messages that say, hey, you don't have a keyboard plugged in. Hey, you don't have a mouse plugged in. Hey, there's no hard drive plugged in. Oh, yeah, wait, no, fine. Okay, but as soon as it pops up, power down, unplug, we're good to go. Now we can go through the steps of properly installing it into our case. Okay, and you're not creating more work for yourself. Okay, because I know what the way my luck is. I spend all that time and do all the proper cable management and get everything up out of the way so I get proper airflow across to everything, only to find that the board is defective or the CPU APU is defective. I know that this RAM is good. This is the beauty of this particular one. This is known good RAM. It was working in Frankenstein, and I just pulled it out. So we know the RAM is good. The APU we know is good because it came out of Frankenstein, and Frankenstein was working. So we have two known good products. If I don't get a boot screen, it's the board. That's simple. Okay. I have a brand new APU, and I looked at it and this one's a little more powerful. So we're gonna stay with that and save that other new one that you saw in the unboxing for another build, another time. Okay. Uh, or if I want to bring Frankenstein back, I can take that APU, drop it in it, okay, in that motherboard, and you get some RAM, stick it in another case, and we're up and going. But without further ado, let's get ready to find out if we got a good motherboard. So we're going to take the VGA cable right here, okay, and we're going to plug the VGA cable into an I/O area, which is input output. This is what all the plugs are on the backside of your computer. So you've all seen it. It's got the VGA out. So let me, and if you haven't, there it is. Now you know where the VGA out is. It's right there. And again, even these plugs are orientated. Okay, this plug is not a perfect square. I don't know what the shape is called, but the sides are in like this, and it's flat on the top and flat on the bottom. So you can't get this thing plugged in backwards. Okay. Okay. And we are back. Let's go ahead and, no, the other way. Okay. Got most of this in the picture here. So we could sneak in here and let's turn this lamp so it's not bouncing off the screen so much. Okay. Found my screwdriver. While I had paused the video, as I indicated, I've got the CPU power hooked up, 8-pin CPU in this case, and the 24-pin main power for the motherboard. Uh, we've got the monitor here. It's plugged in. and I'm going to short the 2 pins. And we're going to watch for that boot screen to boot into BIOS. And let's see if we have success here. Oh, we forgot to plug in the power supply. So let's do that. Ain't much going to happen without plugging it in. So, okay. There's a power cord. And should have had all of this ready, ready to go. Okay. Now we should be good to go. Make sure we're not powering up, so I'm just double checking all my connections. I surely wish a lot of motherboards have a power light that'll indicate that it's getting power from power supply. Okay. Okay, what I'm gonna do, so it's not as boring for you folks out there in video land, is gonna double check all my connections. I'm gonna ensure I have power to the power supply. Uh, this is part of building computers, so let me troubleshoot this board and we'll find out what's going on with it. So, I'm gonna pause you right now and Okay, we're back. Found the source of major malfunction. The power cord was not all the way in. Always check your connections. So let's give it a shot. Short those two pins. Ah, we have success. CPU fan is spinning up. You can see it right there. Spinning away. We're going to watch the monitor here. Ah, there we go. Warning. No bootable device is detected. Setup will enter the BIOS setup utility. That's what we're looking for. We know now that this is a good board. We can go through all the trouble of installing it into our case, knowing fully well when we get everything hooked up, we're going to have an up and running computer. So now I'm going to power down by hitting the power switch on the power supply because obviously I don't have much connections yet. So just do that. See, just disappeared. So let's get that up out of the way. We're going to unplug it. VGA cable. Get it up out of the way. And CPU power again. Hold the lock pin down and rock it jack and forth. It's out. Same thing with our 24 pin connector. Just gently rock that thing back and forth and it's out. So our board, we have a working board now. So let's get that up out of the way. We'll get our box up out of the way. Now we're ready to deal with our case. And I'm going to unplug power cord, power supply. Alrighty. Okay. I know you don't see me. I'm right here. Hello. Uh, what I'm looking for is this. Let's get all of our power leads up out of the way. Okay. I'm even going to disconnect my SATA data. We'll get all of this all up out of the way. Okay. These cords, we're going to push in behind here for the time being. Get them up out of the way. We want an unobstructed working surface. And you may not know it, but up in this area right through here, I salvaged a server grade fan to help cool these drives. So, and that's the power connector for this. Okay. Now, these little standoffs right here, okay, they're all over the place. Another one here, another one here, another one here, another one here. There's holes all through this motherboard tray because it accepts all different size boards. The board that was Frankenstein, the original Frankenstein board, is known as an ATX board. The new board that I bought, its form factor is a M or micro ATX, meaning it's smaller. So we're going to have to make sure that the mounting holes for the new board line up with the holes on the motherboard tray, and the standoffs are in the proper holes because this particular case will accept all different form factors of motherboard. So I'm going to get my motherboard And if you've got really, really good eyes, a lot of times on the motherboard tray, next to the hole, it'll have a letter A, or it'll have a letter W or M. And these will indicate which holes to populate for the board that you have. But this case I found in the trash, so we don't have the manual to know which holes. I think A in this case stands for an ATX board, but all you have to do is line up. All this is the output. It's going to orientate, in this case, this way, just like this. And I can tell right away that this standoff and that standoff are in the right spot. I need another one out here so it looks like A, because there's an A right next to uh, the outside hole on the motherboard, and all the A holes are. I'm not going to go there. That's an easy joke. Lining up with what I need, and I need one, two, three across the top, and then three across that row, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I got a hole here, mounting hole here, another one here. So three across. Sorry about that. I got you unplugged. Okay. If I don't lay it down, that motherboard will just flop out. And all I'm simply going to do is line up, make sure that all the standoffs are lining up, and I can screw the board down into the case. And yeah, I've got everything spot on. So we have our little screws, and we're going to mount our motherboard. And I like to start in the center of the board to help hold it in, and you don't tighten it down all the way 90%. Okay, and that way it gives you a little more wiggle room to the board to make sure that all the other uh, screws can line up with their mounting holes. Okay, that one's in. And there's really, after that, put them in. There's no set way which holes need to go next or none of that. Just make sure that this board is firmly locked in, and you don't have to crank down on these screws. Okay, when it stops, just give it about a quarter of a turn, or not even a quarter, maybe eighth of a turn more. Nice and firm. If you crank down too much, you'll crack the board, you've ruined the board. All we're trying to do is make sure that this board stays in contact with this case. It doesn't come falling out. And it looks like my little kitties have been up here playing around, and they've decided to hide some mounting screws from me. Never fear. I've got oodles and oodles of them. And if we're real lucky, they will grace us with their presence. But don't hold your breath. Okay. Told you. I have plenty of mounting screws. Because I take apart old motherboards. A little bit of a pack rat. If it's of value, it stays. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, there's another one. Alrighty. One last one, and this puppy is mounted right. Okay, it's all secured into the case. Now, what I do at this time is just the opposite and in the same order as when I disassembled. So, next, we're going to connect the front panel connectors these right here, which is the power button, reset button, uh, hard drive light, LED light, which tells you the hard drive's running, and then the power light to let you know that the computer's turned on, the light, like you can't already hear it. So we'll get those connectors done. And on the motherboard itself, it's written which is which. Uh, Power switch PW, okay? HD light, okay? Your hard drive light, okay? Power light, okay? Yeah, reset, reset. Okay, so let's get everything plugged in here. There's the power switch. And as I said before, it does matter your orientation of positive and negative on the lights. And what I always like to do, once everything is hooked up and ready to go, I'll go ahead and power it on and I'll look for my power lights, okay, and make sure that if they're not on, they're backwards. So just turn your power off on your power supply and flip them around. You're golden. You can't blow up the board by having the lights backwards. It don't happen. The light either works or don't work. And if it don't work, we know how to fix it. Flip them around. You got them backwards, dummy. For you folks out there that have got nice, nimble, little, delicate fingers, this is a cakewalk for you. But when you have big hands and big fingers, it can become quite the challenge. And just to let you know, when I wore a wedding ring uh, before my wife passed away, it was a size 14. That'll kind of give you an idea of what I'm working with here. Okay, that's the speaker. The speaker is important, okay, because it's not a speaker for music or anything like that. Uh, there's beep codes. So if you ever have a problem and your PC is not powering up, it will give you a beep code. Beep, 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 beep. If you get a single beep, beep, all is right with the world. It's going to power up. You know, you got everything hooked up properly, and anytime your Windows is going to load on your screen and you're good to go. If you don't hear the beep, you got problems. Okay, last connector, which is the reset button. And because this is a very simple speaker, on high end speakers it matters. Positive, negative, it matters. On this one, it don't. It's just a very basic speaker. And like I said, it's going to put out a beat code to you. And just plug it in and don't worry about it. Its orientation. If you happen to get it right, positive, positive, negative, negative, congrats. If not, congrats, because it don't matter. The speaker's still going to work. Okay, next we're going to hook up the USB, front panel USB wire, and then the front panel speaker and microphone. So what do we have here, Donna? I'm pretty sure we're working with USB. Yes, we're working with USB. And again, it is marked on the board USB 1F front panel. Okay, and like everything else on these PCs, it's orientated. There is one pin that is blocked out. So you can only plug this in one way. Okay? You can plug it in two ways, the wrong way and the right way, but the wrong way you're going to really have to work. I mean, it's going to take every part of your strength, and all you do is you bend pins. So if it pushes in nice and firm, you're good with the world. All I try to do is line up, make sure that the in this case, this corner up here is got no pin. Okay, so I'll look down there and I'll see that this side towards me and to my left there's no pin. So I'll just line up everything and make sure that it lines up, and in she went. Like I said, it takes some firmness, and you're gonna think the first time you ever do it, yeah, well, am I pushing too hard? Well, you're probably not, but lift up, take a look. Okay, if you're using every bit of your strength, too much. Okay. Uh, Next on the hit parade list is the microphone and speaker front panel connectors. This one. Now on this one, you have two. You have AC97. That's this one. Okay. AC97 is old school stuff. Uh, and then you have HD audio. Everything today is HD, so I would just ignore the AC 97. And audio, IO, input output. Says it right on the board. And again, if you don't know what these things are, there's our manual. It's right there. It step by step, it'll lay it out for you. So, and if you are on Burst Nation and you have questions, you can always find me in the chat box, and you can pop me up and say, "Hey, Screaming Eagle, what's up with this? How does this work?" I'll walk you right through it, step by step, until we get you up and going. Okay? Next is our SATA data cables. Okay? We're going to work with those and get them hooked up, which is our hard drives. But before that, do that. That reminds me, I have one other step to do to this case to prepare, and that is to remove this SATA, or excuse me, SSD drive, solid state drive, because the operating system is on this drive, and the operating system is orientated with that board. So it's going to stay with that board. I'll do a fresh install of Windows. I'm not going to bore you through all that. Okay. This video will end long before that comes about. We are just, all we're concerned with here is putting it together. And again, we're going to boot into BIOS. Okay. And that's where the video will end. And I'll do a little bit of commentation at the end, and we'll call it done. So I need to step off screen here for a second and get the blank hard drive that I'm going to use to install the operating system for this Frankenstein 2.0. And we have us a nice reformatted hard drive here. This PCB board, this particular hard drive I found in the trash because the PCB board, well, the PCB board was fine, but these pins were all busted off, and somebody did not want to take a little bit of time and remove the board and unplug the connector to the reader and replace the board. These boards are $3, about $3 a piece. So I've got a 500 gig hard drive that runs for about 30 bucks that cost me $3. I say that's not too bad. I'll take that any day of the week, all day, and twice on Sunday. Okay. That puppy is in like planned. Now we'll put our two screws in and lock that baby down. And again, I'm not showing it to you, okay, because it's pretty self-explanatory itself. You know, you line up the holes on the hard drive with the holes in your case and put your screw in and lock it down. Okay. We got all that. Now we're ready for our SATA data cables. Okay. And start. To start with, and I'm not going to bore you all with this, the only hard drive I'm going to hook up right now is the one for the operating system that I'm going to load Windows onto. And I'm taking this other one out, and I'll deal with it later. Once this is got Windows 7 loaded in it, all the updates are done, and everything's ready, at that time, I will then plug in uh, each drive in order and boot up Windows and let it see it, recognize it, log it. Then I'll close Windows and plug in my next one, power it up, and keep repeating the process till all of my drives are now recognized by Windows and the magic can start happening. This is a mining rig. This is one that, but we'll get into that in my commentary. Right now, let's get this case together. So, find us a nice SATA cable, and you got SATA 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, and that's why I picked this board, because some boards only have 4 SATA connectors, 2 SATA connectors, and when you're mining, you want hard drive space. Hard drive space, hard drive space. The more hard drive space you can get, the more money per day you will make. It is that simple. There is not a lot of rocket scientists or science in this. So I always like to keep my drives in order. So it's sort of in order because C drive is always on uh, your operating system is always on your C drive. Uh, so D, E, F, G, C. I'm going to put plug into SATA port 0, and that you don't have to, but I'm just very analogical and organized because everything flows, and that's just me. You want to plug your C drive into 7? It'll work. It'll work. There's, you know, nothing wrong with that at all. Okay. Now I've made all of my connections except for Let's show you. Okay, we'll get our power connector for our fan out of the way. I've got my SATA connector. Okay, SATA data. This is where all the information flows to the hard drive and out through this cable. Okay, I have uh, front speaker and microphone connection, front USB connection, my front panel connectors, the on and off switch, reset switch, the power light, and hard drive functioning light. And then I have my speaker plugged in. And again, that's for the beep code, so that when I turn this on and I hear this little beep, I know that my board's about to power up. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is start all the power connectors, and this will be the last step before I'm ready to again plug it into the monitor. I'm not going to plug in the keyboard. I'm not going to plug in um, all my other connectors. All I want is to verify that I post into BIOS. And this time, now that the hard drive's plugged in, we remember the warning before that said, warning, there's no hard drive plugged into this motherboard. Therefore, we're going to go to BIOS. Okay. Uh, I'll blow right past that warning. It won't even show up. I'll go straight into BIOS at that point. Okay. So all we need for this is the 24 pin main power connector for the motherboard, the CPU power connector, and there are two runs of SATA power. This is SATA power. Okay. Uh, so I need one to power up my hard drive. SATA power for the hard drive. So all these others, we'll get them up out of the way. And let's start with see, right now I'm paying attention to take care because I'm going to make sure that all my cable routing will be tucked up out of the way and not impede any type of airflow to the motherboard that will prevent it from being cooled off. So I'm taking care now to make sure nothing is tangled up. So we have our first connection, which is power to the hard drive, SATA power. And as you can see, it's going to tuck up nicely up out of the way. I guess you can't see. It's going to tuck up nicely up out of the way. Okay. My next connection is going to be CPU power. Again, orientate. You have square pins, you have D-shaped pins, you have round pins, and that's why I say you can't plug these things in wrong. They only go one way, and that's it. I need to lay it down. Sorry, folks. I'm trying to show you, but I'm making life more difficult. I can hook these things up a lot quicker in this orientation. Okay. CPU power is hooked up. SATA power is hooked up. Our last connection is the motherboard power. The 24 pin motherboard power connector. So I'm going to hook that up, and then I'll flip the case up and show you that everything is connected and I've got all the wiring tucked up out of the way temporarily. It's not. It'll be zip tied down and everything locked up, and made sure again that we don't impede any type of airflow to any part of our components, because heat again is the number one killer, premature killer of electronic devices. I'm just taking the rest of these and tucking them up into the 5 1/4 drive bay area. And there we are. That's it. It is that simple to build a PC. Obviously, if you don't have one and you never built one, the first half of these videos you can ignore because you're not going to be disassembling anything. But the assembly part, you see how easy this went. This computer is built. I have every confidence that when I push that power button, I'm going to boot right into the boot screen, the BIOS boot. Because again, I verified it before I installed it into the case. So, that being said, without further ado, let's find out if we're a winner or zero. So, if we're a zero, we go back to the drawing board and we make it right. So, power for the power supply. BGA. And as my friend, a new friend, V-Neck says, boom, boom, and all that. It's all connected. So, drum roll. I don't see a power button, so let's check the power switch on the power supply. We'll try it one more time. Ah, I see it. So now I'm not going to turn it. You've seen what the BIOS boot screen looks for. I'm just watching the monitor over there and waiting for. I see flickering, and it says reboot and select proper boot drive. Insert boot media in select boot device and press any key. That tells me we are good to go. There is no Windows operating system boot boot drive. There's no boot drive on that disk. It's clean. It's empty. So we're good to go. One computer built. The only thing lacking right now is, like I said, to install Windows operating or Linux, your choice, whichever one you like, whatever tickles your little fancy, works. And we will get this down and out of the way. And I have had a few requests that people want to see my co-hosts. So, like I said, I'll try to get them here. I don't guarantee it. Callie, you want to come here? Callie girl. Go ahead, baby. Come on. What? This is the Grand Dame. She's 19 years old. She was my trucking baby. She rode on my truck with me everywhere. She's been to 48 states, Canada. You want to say hi? Say, hi, my name's Callie. And she is a sweetheart. She, oh, enough of that. But this is my co-host, Callie. Missy, she's the baby. She's only like 8 months old. She's sleeping. Okay, you want to go? Go. Um, And Mr. Fathead, he's hiding, so he's probably up under the couch. Okay, folks, I'm going to get you a little bit close here, and it's time for me to talk to you just a little bit. Um, I have a message to pass to you that's extremely important. You're about to lose out on an opportunity that does not come along. These type of opportunities might come along once in a lifetime, twice in a lifetime, extremely rare. Uh, Mining for BurstCoin. Do your research. Google it. There's a Wikipedia about BurstCoin. Okay. Nobody is going to charge you a cent to learn how to mine for Burst. You don't have to buy big fancy equipment. You can use what you have. Just plot it mines with your hard drive. Plot what you got. If you need proof of concept that this works, it makes money. When I got into it in February, it took 30 coins, okay, 30 burst coins to make 1 penny. Here we are, fast forward, not quite 4 months later, okay, one burst coin, 1 penny. That's huge. That is absolutely huge. Burst will be on the same level as Bitcoin. And everybody knows what Bitcoin is. Okay? The clock's ticking here. And it's not even a quiet clock. It's saying now or lose. It's that simple. Okay? Uh, Don, why do you want to tell people how to get rich? Because everybody deserves an opportunity to improve the quality of life we have. That's what the America was built on. Okay, you can take this as far as you want to apply yourself. Um, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen fast, but it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be given to you. You have to do the work. You have to plot your hard drive. That takes a long time. The bigger the hard drive, the more it takes. It took me the better part of 6 days to plot the 6 terabyte hard drive that I'm going to be putting in Frankenstein to take it from, uh, and 6 terabytes once it's formatted is technically five. So I was mining with 5 terabytes, and now I'll be at 10 terabytes, um, doubling what I've been doing. So uh, $800 for months. Uh, I see $3,600 in 4 months now because the price of Burst is it is blowing up like no coin has ever. Not even Bitcoin took off this fast because it had to fight the general public out here who had no concept, no clue of what cryptocurrency was, and the fact that it has a true monetary value that you can spend it like money. You can get money for it, U.S. cash, cold hard American dollars, not just numbers on your computer screen. Okay, I'm talking about $100 bill, a $50 bill. Okay, whatever currency you want. Okay, you can take these coins to an exchange online and say, I'm selling them. I want this much, whatever the going rate is. Okay, you can even go higher. Okay, you can list it and say, I want, $1 for each one of my coins. And let's say they're going for a penny right now. That order is probably not going to be filled for a little bit. You're going to have to sit on that for a while, but it's coming. It will happen. Your order will get filled. Okay, so but your order gets filled. You can then, that's Bitcoin. Uh, Put that into a Bitcoin type online bank, and then transfer in cash from the Bitcoin over into your uh, bank account, your regular bank account, and you got the money. Go to the ATM, pull it out, it's in your hand. Cold, hard cash. Just for having your computer on. It's not overheating it. It's not putting undue stress on it. Okay, it's not wearing it out. Not the way that Bitcoin does, Litecoin, just on and on. Any coin you want to name, other than Burst, wears out equipment at an accelerated pace. It might pay for itself because the coin goes up and down and back, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You don't need to get into all that. This is what you need to know. Do it or lose it. It's that simple. Um, at any rate, uh, I need you guys to do something for me. I need you to like the video, subscribe to the video, dislike the video, sure, give me a thumbs down. But don't just give me a thumbs down. Tell me why. I'm a big man. I can take criticism, okay? It's not the end of the world. Constructive criticism I will listen to every single time. You're never too old to learn, okay? If you dislike the video, tell me why. Okay? Don't just dislike it. Tell me why. Okay? And if you want to see more videos, what types of videos, uh, let me know. Leave your comments. Tell me. And we'll take it from there. If I don't hear anything, then that tells me, you know, you liked it, but yeah, okay, Don, you know, it was nice, but let's go on. And, hey, that's fine. You know, I have fun doing these videos. I really do. And I'm come from a family of teachers. My mother was a teacher, my aunts, my uncles, on and on and on and on. And it's in my blood. And I was an instructor in the Navy. I have a 9505 MOS instructor. Okay. So I do it because I love it. It gives me a purpose in life. And to see somebody light up when you pass on knowledge to them, it, I don't even know how to properly formulate the words of what it does for me. Okay? So, like I said, that's my video. And let's go from here. And good night, Burst Nation. And happy Burst Day, wherever you're at in the world. Cheers and ta-ta.